Friends, welcome to a video where we're going to be talking about intrusive thoughts and overthinking. This is coming from the lived experience of myself as somebody who has struggled with OCD, health anxiety OCD, for much of my life. And I'm going to be giving you some invaluable tools and things you can just bring into your day-to-day life to allow you to drop back into the body and take more of an observer's role when it comes to that mental distortion that is quite debilitating in many ways. So before we get into the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and yeah, you'll get notified when these videos come up. Thanks for being here again, and it's lovely to have you. Intrusive thoughts and overthinking. This is something that I have personally got a lot of experience in, mainly because I've struggled with it, right? We tend to hold a lot of experience in the things that we have experienced, right? So this is coming from my own primary experience as a person who has struggled with debilitating intrusive thoughts and through obsessive compulsive disorder and through health anxiety and generalized anxiety in general. I'm hoping by the end of this video, I'm going to enlighten you a little bit as to how you can start to work with this so it doesn't have to become something that is crippling your life. And actually, it can become something that is powerful for you. You can actually alchemize these intrusive thoughts and this obsessive compulsive disorder in a way that you can actually start to use it as a gate to your power instead of it being something that takes away your power. How can you alchemize it and actually use it as a tool for growth? Something I love to do with everything. Let's get into what this intrusive thought is doing. I want to talk quickly about it from a psychology perspective, and then I'm going to talk about it from a yogic perspective, because both sides are things that I have worked with quite a lot in my own personal journey, in my own life. And I've managed to be able to really take the center stage when it comes to these intrusive thoughts and this overthinking. And I can nowadays quite quickly take myself out of that rabbit hole of distraction and bring myself back into my awareness, bring myself back into my center. And this comes from some of the tools that I'm going to teach you today on this video. So stay tuned, and I hope it's helpful. So first and foremost, from a psychological perspective, I want to explain something called cognitive fusion and cognitive diffusion. Cognitive fusion is essentially when somebody becomes so attached to their thoughts that they believe all of their thoughts. Every thought that comes up they think is true. I've been there, you might have been there. Sometimes I'm still there, right? I'm a human, even though I've worked through this stuff throughout my journey of life because I had to, because I was really suffering quite a lot. All humans with a bloody monkey chattery brain do tend to hang on to the thoughts in many ways, shape or form. But we always have the ability to be able to find that separation from our thoughts. So cognitive fusion is when the thoughts and the self become merged together. And what I might call, or you'll know the saying, you can't see the wood for the trees, right? You can't see the wood for the trees. In this case, you can't see the truth for the thoughts, because every thought that comes in, and there's a bloody lot of them, right? You become attached to that thought instead of allowing it to just be a thought that's energy in motion, right? So that's cognitive fusion, where thoughts and self become one, and you feel like you can't discern what's a thought and what's the truth, right? Because all thoughts are not truth, right? Thoughts are just coming up. Yeah, our mind is a word machine. Thoughts just come up and are there to be released. But when we have cognitive fusion, which lots of humans do, right? We hold on to those thoughts and we believe them all. So that's the first thing. Specifically, if you have got anxiety OCD, which obviously comes with intrusive thoughts, quite debilitating intrusive thoughts. If you've got OCD, you'll know what I'm talking about, that peck your head like a really annoying little bird all day long, that you believe, and it gives you chronic anxiety, and it starts to set off these feelings and sensations in the physical body that cripple you. It can cripple you. It can stop you from being able to do anything in your day, because at the forefront of your day is this really dominating intrusive thought that's taking over everything, and it's also invading your joy. It's clouding your spirit. It's invading your joy. It's stopping you from being able to feel authentic emotion and authentic experiences of life and being in presence, because we're so clouded with this intrusion. So this is cognitive fusion, in the sense that somebody who's struggling maybe with intrusive thoughts and overthinking has in some way, shape or form sort of fused themselves to their thoughts. Maybe not necessarily believing every thought or believing that they are their thoughts, but instead not being able to find that separation between true self and thought. So that's cognitive fusion. Cognitive diffusion. Cognitive diffusion is the process in psychology whereby the person starts to find space in between them, true self awareness, and the thoughts. Yeah, so cognitive fusion, thoughts and person are one, or believed to be so. Cognitive diffusion is where true self and thoughts are separate. And the person has learned how to find space in between themselves and their center, their presence, and their experience of life, and the thoughts that are moving by like clouds moving by in the sky, or an ocean wave going onto the shore and retrieving itself back to the ocean. Okay, it's always in motion. Now, somebody with cognitive diffusion, or somebody who struggles with overthinking and intrusive thoughts, will get attached to that thought, or those thoughts, or all the thoughts that are coming in, and it will drag them out of the present moment. It will essentially drag them out of the experience of presence and being in life. So it can put a right dampener on your experience of life. I've been there. I completely empathize with it, because it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. So you might be having a beautiful, barbecue in the sun, and you might be with friends, and it might be a lovely day. But what's happening with somebody who's struggling with overthinking and intrusive thoughts is they're not really being in that experience, because they've become attached to every thought that comes up, whatever that is in the day, and they've sort of taken themselves out of that beautiful space that they're experiencing, which is life, by the way. So therefore, it can actually become quite emptying. It can become quite empty, and we lose our experience of joy and spirit and our sense of self a lot in the process. And I've been there, and sometimes I can go back there, but thankfully I now have tools that can very instantly transport me back into the present moment and find that cognitive diffusion, that space between thought and true self, experienced true self. And so somebody who's not so attached to their thoughts, somebody who is a little bit more content in the present moment, they might be able to experience that barbecue, as an example, with friends in the sun, having a lovely time, as this present experience. So they really absorb life and they're fulfilled by life. But when intrusive thoughts come in and we get that cognitive fusion, we become very attached to every thought that comes along, we build a narrative that takes us away from the truth of the actual experience. And like I say, it can become something that feels emptying. It can make life feel a little bit of a void. Now in yoga, so this is what we might call it in psychology, cognitive fusion and cognitive diffusion. Thoughts held on, thoughts observed. Now in yoga, we call this something else. In yoga, we call this becoming the observer or becoming the watchman. We call it drashta bhava. Drashta bhava, which essentially means to observe one's thoughts. Not to become them, not to cling on to them, not to believe them all, just to observe them. It's a deep inner knowing from a very aware space that we are not our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. Yeah? Just like that big sky up there is not the clouds. Just like the world is not just one season. Yeah? We're not always winter. We're not always spring. We're not always summer. The cloud, the blue sky is not always a grey cloud. It's not always a swifty cloud. It's not always a cumulonimbus cloud. It's not always a cirrus cloud. I know this because I'm a bloody cloud watcher. I literally watch clouds for a living to try and figure out when the blue sky is coming, right? Love it. Not everything is always everything. And when we become attached to our thoughts, what we tend to do is we hold on to stuff like it's the truth. And it's not, because everything is continuously changing. That is one thing about life that is true and very solid in its reality, is that it's always in flux. So the energy of the mind is always in flux. The energy of our emotions is always in flux. The energy of the seasons and the experience of life is always in a transitory state. It's never stationary. It's always moving. And you'll probably be able to recognize this when you are having an intrusive thought. One day the intrusive thought might be about something very specific, and all day you'll hang on to it. What if I said that thing to that person? What if I told that secret to that person that I wasn't meant to tell? Oh no, I could have told that secret to that person that I wasn't meant to tell. Everybody's talking about it. Oh no, no. And then you'll make it into a big catastrophe in your mind because you've decided that that thought is the worthy thing to hold on to today. The next day, you've completely forgotten about it because it wasn't true. It was just something that you'd gone down a rabbit hole with. And the next day, something else came in, right? So this intrusive thought and this sort of obsessive compulsive way of relating to the mind essentially shifts and changes all the time, and will home in on one thing and then it'll disappear into nowhere, and then there'll be a whole new set of thoughts to home in on, and then the next day it's gone, then there'll be a whole new, you see, so it becomes this, there's no consistency in it. So that's one way to know whether it's very, very, very mental and you're hanging on to your thought patterns and you're becoming very rigid in the thought patterns, is essentially because it's not consistent. It's consistent that we are holding on to the thoughts and we've found that cognitive fusion and we've struggled to be able to find space between ourselves and the thought. That's consistent. Yeah, and it is a challenge, and it's a real challenge, and I have so much compassion for it because I've been there, like I say, and I can go back there if I don't use my tools. But essentially, what the thoughts are about are inconsistent. It's not a deep, long-standing true. It's something that comes and goes. The story, the narrative is changing continuously. It's inconsistent because the mind is inconsistent, because it's a word machine. So it's like it's popping all sorts of stuff up. Now, I'm somebody who's struggled with OCD, health anxiety, OCD specifically. So my intrusive thoughts were very much around health and am I safe? This is very much root chakra work. And I'm going to explain this a little bit, just in case this is something that might be helpful, because it's a tool that's really, really helped me throughout my life. My thoughts specifically, the ones that I got attached to, were all around, am I going to survive? Yeah? Am I going to survive? Is everything okay? Is everything going to be okay? And every time I would get something wrong with me, it could have been something as small as a headache. It could have been something very fleeting, like a certain pain in my body or a sensation in my body, of which I get a lot of because I'm very sensitive to energy in general. But any sensations that might come up, my mind would go into overdrive. I would get that cognitive fusion where I became very attached to my thoughts, and I'd think, oh no, there's something terribly wrong with me. I'm not going to survive. And that would be the thoughts that I would start to replay over and over and over again. And this was a thought, this is very common of somebody with health anxiety, OCD, is we get attached to something where we always feel like something's going to go wrong. And it's a really, really challenging space to live in. For example, I had heartburn a good year ago now, and it was chronic. It lasted for a long period of time. I'd really worked very hard into my inner self, into the yogic practices that I work with, Kundalini yoga, mindfulness, meditation, breathwork, these things that I pop into my life often because it's what really helps me. But there was this period where I had this long bout of chronic heartburn, and this really triggered my health anxiety. It really brought these huge intrusive thoughts back in, and I struggled again to find that space, that awareness, that space, that distance between myself and the thoughts. All of my old patterns of health anxiety and intrusive thought holding came back. What's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me? Everything's been checked out. The doctors must have missed something. And it carries on like this, right? If you know, you know. That's an example of how it can get out of control, and then that overthinking literally keeps us very attached to the mind, because where our attention goes, our energy flows, and where our energy flows, our attention goes, and it becomes a catch-22, right? So if we're continuously overthinking and we're continuously attaching ourselves, fusing ourselves to our thoughts, guess where our attention is? It's here. It's up here. Yeah, it's in the mind. It's in the upper body. And there's a little saying that says, overthinking is underfeeling. But often, what causes overthinking in the first place, or what causes these intrusive thoughts and the feeling that we need to get attached to our thoughts, is because we've underfelt in the first place. And we've underfelt in the first place because we haven't felt safe in our body. This is something that I wanted to teach very, very quickly in this session, is imagine you go through a stressful situation in life, a trauma, a negative experience, a stressful situation, specifically early on in life, in childhood, right? We've all had these things in varying different degrees. And when we go through these traumatic situations, these stressful periods in life, what tends to happen is our energy in our body and our nervous system goes in one of two ways. Both ways are trying to escape the stressful traumatic experience because it doesn't feel safe to experience in the now. So when we go through that stressful experience, our energy increases, and when it either increases, so that we bring extra energy into the body so that we can run from the situation, or we decrease energy in the body so that we can withdraw from the situation. One is running and bringing ourselves into that fight or flight state, that sympathetic nervous system overload, and one is withdrawing and numbing and bringing ourselves into that sort of like under parasympathetic nervous system state, which is withdrawing from the situation so we numb it out, right? Both of those states are underfeeling. We have not allowed ourselves to feel the emotions and experience the present moment because it was too challenging at that time. And that's fine. And we must have such deep compassion towards ourselves for that, right? because we didn't know any different at the time. And our body was just trying to protect us. Our nervous system was trying to keep us safe. So pat on the back for our body for doing its job, right? But what happens when this happens to people, and we've been taught to do this, we've never been taught to feel our feelings and sit with our emotions and be present. We've been taught to escape our emotions and escape our feelings and run away from them and don't be soft, yeah, and all of that stuff. What happens when we escape the body because our body's been protecting us, yeah, from trauma, or our conditionings have told us that it's not safe to feel our feelings or safe to feel our emotions? What happens is the energy becomes outward. Yeah, so we're not contained in our body. Instead, the energy shoots up to the mind. It's not balanced through the body. Yeah, it's very much in the mind. And like I say, where our attention goes, our energy flows. So overthinking is underfeeling. And overthinking happens because we have not been able to feel safe feeling the feelings in the first place. These are the tips that I'd like to give today. When you're going through these periods of intrusive thought and overthinking, where the energy is very much in the mind and you've become cognitively fused to the point where you're struggling to experience and embody life in the moment, right? Which is not your fault, because it's not our fault, because that's what we've been taught. And that's what our body was trying to do to keep us safe. When we're going through these intrusive thoughts, one of the best things that we can do is learn how to find separation between self and the thought. And to be able to do that, we have to come into a space of presence. Now, if you haven't learned to be present with your feelings and your emotions, this space might not feel very safe. So it's all about being kind to yourself and over time using little tools to bring you back into that center, to bring you back into the root of the body. Yeah, so grounding your energy back into your root chakra, the base of the energy system, and grounding your energy back into the physical body. One of the best things that you can do is to literally do something very physical. And over time, learn how to bring that physicality into something that is present, to something very tactile. I'm going to give some examples. When that overthinking is coming in, to learn how to start to feel safe in your body and feel safe in stillness, it might be that some form of movement, some form of tactile exploration is something that's going to be very beneficial for you. That might mean something along the lines of holding something like rocks, crystals, cooking, using your hands to ground you back into this physical plane, into this earthly plane. Yep, making something, sewing, creating something, doing a drawing, writing, physically doing some movement, some dancing, some martial arts, some Kundalini yoga is my absolute favourite for intrusive thoughts, because you work with varying different ways in which the mind might escape, and it brings you back into presence without you having to overthink it, right? So actually getting back into the body in varying different ways, tactile ways, that over time teach the body's nervous system and energy fields to feel safe being in the now, being in your body. So something very, very physical. Really over time what we're doing is we're learning to bring the energy back into the body. We're embodying our experience of life again. So that's one thing. When the intrusive thoughts come, so that you can find that cognitive diffusion, that separation between you and your thoughts, because you're not your thought. This is just energy in motion, like everything in life. Coming back to something very tactile is a hugely helpful thing to do, okay? Using the hands. The hands are connected to the heart space. So that allows you to find some softness from that constant overthinking of the brain. Being in nature is another one. Nature teaches us that everything is continuously in a cycle and everything is continuously in flow. And nature teaches us to let go of things, like letting go of thoughts as they cross the mind. Nature teaches us where to let go and how to move through life with less resistance and more ease. So just being in nature like a druid and observing the way in which nature moves and flows and changes and transitions and breathes and contracts and expands and blooms and dies and moves, and all of this stuff is in continuous rebirth. Yeah, it's in continuous flux. So just observing nature allows you to remember that you are nature, and nothing is different from a human being to nature. We've just got these crazy minds going on, right? So going and observing nature and watching how it lets go, how it continuously rebirths itself, and it doesn't hold on to anything. Yeah, when the wind blows, if some leaves fall off the tree's not going, come back, you bloody set of leaves. I need to keep you and I need to have this cognitive fusion with you. It's not doing that. It's just going, I'll grow some new ones. Yep. This is like our thoughts. So really bringing yourself back into the world over and over again is going to allow you to find that space between thought and self. And then the last thing is once you've found that grounded element in the body, so you've done something tactile, you've used the physical body, and you've observed nature that you are not separate from, and you've watched how it teaches you to let go and rebirth. The last thing is to then actually connect to the breath. And you hear people say this over and over again, right? Connect to the breath, because it's the key to life. It is life. The breath is life. When we are breathing, we are alive. When we are not breathing, we are not alive. Right? So when we just connect to the breath, and that might come by having to do some varying different movements that go with it, conscious movements. You know, if you're not used to being still and connecting to the breath and this is uncomfortable for you, it might be that you do some body movements with the breath, slow dancing or moving to some slow, steady movement and connecting the breath to the movement, flowing through a yoga practice or something like that. Because what the breath does is it anchors you into life. And where your attention goes, your energy flows. So the more you learn to anchor yourself back to the breath, the more the nervous system recognizes that you are becoming safe in your body. So it's a repetition. Because repetition is the mother of skill. You are teaching the nervous system and your energy to feel safe in presence, which is breath. Presence is breath. And over time, that capacity to feel safe with the breath expands the capacity to feel safe in the nervous system, which expands the capacity to feel safe in the body, which brings you back home to yourself and your experience of life. And that is how we start to switch the patterns of overthinking, because we've learnt to come back home to ourselves and find space between our thoughts and our experience of life in the body. Okay, my friends, I hope this helped for now. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful, if there's anything you would like me to do a video on around these topics, and if it's my field, then I'm happy to help. Lots of love and have a wonderful day. Bye. Hi guys, thanks for watching that video with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it means the world to me. If you would like to watch any more videos, there's 2 here just for you.